6 months after buying a Tesla Model Y, my wife and I are finally taking it on the longest road trip yet, 2000 kilometers from the north of the Netherlands to the capital of Spain, Madrid. In this video I'll show you all the charger stops, infrastructure, mileage and all the costs to give you an idea of the convenience of traveling by Tesla around Western Europe. At the end of the video as a bonus I'll also mention charging Tesla in Portugal, where we went after Madrid, because it was the first time when we had a different experience from the rest of Europe. Let's dive right into it. Before the trip, I always check if the trip can be done fully relying on Tesla Supercharging using the Tesla Planning app feature. It showed me that the direct trip to Madrid should take 1,863 kilometers, almost 24 hours and 10 charging stops. This is not the road we will be taking, but it showed me that it should be fine to only use the Tesla network. To compare, I also planned the trip on Google Maps and it showed almost the same 1,826 kilometers but in 19 hours, meaning the charging stops should be around 5 hours in total. Let's test this out. Despite my trust in Tesla superchargers, I also signed up for another fast charging network, Ionity, just in case. Ionity allows you to use their chargers without any subscription for the highest price, and it was good enough as a backup plan. Packing a Model Y is incredibly easy because it has so much space around the car. However, this time it was a little bit more complicated because we decided to set up a car mattress which takes up most of the trunk and back seat space. But we wanted to have a flexibility for possible camping on this road trip. We already did this before and we liked it. But even with the car bed, we had enough space to put everything inside the car, even with my big tech items like my monitor, Mac Studio and Xbox. We didn't even have to fill our trunk too much, where we usually store charging cables and other car-related items. We live in the north of the Netherlands, in the city of Zwolle, so that's where the trip has started. We hit the road on a Christmas day, December 25th, and although winters are not cold here in Holland, it still affects the mileage of EV vehicles quite a bit compared to summer trips. So the charging range of this trip is probably one of the worst you can have in a Tesla in Europe, especially considering heavy packing. Tesla allows you to create up to 2 separate trips from the general odometer to track a specific road trips. That was very convenient for tracking this drive. We had only 27% when we started, so the first stop was really soon, in 42 kilometers in Harderwijk, where we arrived at 12%. Fun fact, this is the very first V4 Tesla supercharger in the world. I was surprised to learn it was built here in the Netherlands and not in the US, for example. Since it's only the beginning of the trip and we were eager to drive, we charged only to 90% in 25 minutes and continued. Tesla Navigator automatically drives you right via supercharger with a prediction system when you need to charge next. This is a fantastic system, but it makes your supercharger stops very short to optimize the charging speed, because after about 80% of battery, charging slows down quite a bit, so the Tesla always tries to balance this with more charging stops. We often ignore it and just stay at all stops as much as comfortable for us, often charging to just 100%. Our Model Y RDV has a LFP battery, which is actually recommended to be charged up to 100%, compared to NCA batteries many other Teslas have, which is recommended to charge only to 80%. The next supercharger stop was after 80 more kilometers at the town of Meerkerk, where we arrived at 66%. This is also a type of stop where we go against Tesla's recommendation and we call it ABC, always be charging. We needed to resupply on coffee and use a bathroom, so why not stop at supercharger? Most Tesla chargers are nice locations with cafes, stores or hotels. Here we charged to 96% in 13 minutes. The next stop was 35 kilometers away, again unnecessary, but it was the last Tesla supercharger in the Netherlands in the city of Oosterhout. And we wanted to enjoy the Dutch charging prices the last time and charged from 85% to 100% in 10 minutes. The Netherlands has one of the lowest Tesla supercharging prices at around 27 to 29 euro cents per kilowatt hour. And in general, owning a Tesla here is a pleasure, because superchargers are everywhere and the driving experience is usually very enjoyable. We skipped charging in Belgium because their prices are quite high and just drove through the country without stopping. After another 220 kilometers, we entered France and stopped at the Neuilly-Godet supercharger at 27%. In the Netherlands, I was consuming energy as Tesla predicted, but in France it started depleting quicker. The reason is highway speed limits. During the daytime, the speed limit in the Netherlands is 100 km per hour, and in France it's 130. Tesla recommends staying under 110 km per hour for better battery performance, but we didn't mind stopping more times, so we always drove at the country speed limits. Another change was toll roads. In the Netherlands and Belgium there are no paid toll roads, but there are a lot of them in France and later in Spain. This adds quite a bit to travel expenses. Another interesting contrast after the Netherlands: in France on Christmas Day everything was pretty much dead. The supercharger was located at a huge shopping mall, but everything was closed, and here's our hope to have some croissants. At this stop we charged the full battery in 35 minutes and drove toward Paris. In 144 kilometers we had the last supercharger stop for the day at Saint-Lys, where we arrived with 45%. We charged the full battery in 26 minutes and drove another 65 kilometers. Since we still had a lot of energy, we decided to sleep in a car this night and hit the road as early as possible. Tesla has a very convenient camp mode, allowing heat and air circulation inside the car at night, and it's perfect for sleeping. If you are curious to learn more about sleeping experience in a Tesla, I had a video on my channel where I go into details about my camping experience. Check it out by the link in the description. We went to sleep at around 92% and woke up at 86% in the morning. I was happy that we hit the road early because the Paris Ring Road is always busy even on holidays, so we avoided the traffic and drove another 191 kilometers to the next supercharger at Blois, where we arrived at 9%. This supercharger was the first one without asphalt, so the Tesla looked a bit dirty afterwards. Despite bragging about my empty trunk at the beginning of the trip, it eventually got parked on the road because all the clothes and food we needed quick access to, so at this point it looked like this. Here we charged to full battery in 32 minutes. The next leg was 226 kilometers and we arrived at New York supercharger at 12%. It was the first time when we finally started feeling that we were going south. The sun was shining and our mood had immediately improved. At this stop we charged up to 100% again in 36 minutes and moved to the last leg of the day. We were quite tired at this point, so we decided to stay at the hotel this night. We drove another 196 kilometers and stayed at B&B hotel near Bordeaux airport. The hotel had a convenient parking lot right near the rooms, so our Tesla managed to use a hotel Wi-Fi and install a new cool update overnight. This is why I love Tesla so much, because it constantly gets better with over-the-air updates even on the road. This hotel was located just 4 minutes from a Tesla supercharger, which was perfect in the morning. We moved the car to the supercharger at 34%. Here we had our first faulty stall. It's rare, but sometimes you connect to the stall and see a slow charging speed. This one was stuck at 63 kW. I usually wait for 3 to 5 minutes, and if the speed doesn't improve I just move to another stall, and it always helps. At the other stall the speed was 146 kW, which is normal. Our Model Y RDV charges at 140 kW on average at all superchargers in Europe, because V1 slow chargers don't exist anymore and V3 and V4 amazing speed are not fully accessible yet, since the max possible charge power for this model is 175 kW. Near the hotel we charged to 100% in 28 minutes, stacked up on some croissants and hit the road starting the third day of travel. The goal for today was to reach Bilbao in Spain and stay there for one day. Surprisingly, I noticed that autopilot helped reduce energy consumption even at 130 km per hour. I guess it's not surprising, and software can optimize much better than a human driver. I always try to use autopilot whenever it's possible on highways, because it also reduces how much you get tired on the road. When a highway is wiggly, however, Tesla tends to go into turns too fast for my comfort, so on such parts I either take over the wheel or reduce the speed manually. After driving another 185 km, we arrived at the last supercharger in France at 31%, in the place I would never be able to pronounce. I think Saint-Pierre-de-Louvre, something like this. It was a nice V4 charger near a shopping mall, but it was quite a busy one. I guess everyone who was driving to Spain was stopping here. We got some more croissants from Paul Bakery and charged to 100% in 25 minutes. After entering Spain, we also visited and walked around a coastal town of San Sebastian, which was pretty nice, before going on the last leg for the day to Bilbao. We booked a hotel right when we were approaching the city, and I was surprised how easy it was to book a hotel within a few hours before arrival, but I guess it's because it's winter. Right near the hotel, we found a city parking garage where we left a Tesla for the next day. This stop was absolutely unnecessary, and I think we could have driven to Madrid on the third day, but we were on a vacation, so after seeing only highways for a few days, it was nice to put on a travel hat for a bit. On the fourth day, after exploring the city, we hit the road again for the latest destination of the year, Madrid. Since the last charge, including Bilbao and San Sebastian stops, we drove around 287 kilometers and arrived at the next Tesla Supercharger at just 6%. At this point, I was quite confident and fully relied on Tesla Navigator predictions. This was the most empty supercharger I have ever seen near the city of Vitoria. It was completely new with V4 superchargers, but there was nothing and nobody around during the whole stop. After charging to 96% in 29 minutes, we continued the trip. After another 196 kilometers, we stopped for the last charging before Madrid near Aranda de Duero at 21% and charged up to 89% in 14 minutes. Another 147 kilometers and we finally arrived at Madrid. We were staying at our friends who lived in a tall residential building with a huge underground garage with charging points. They don't have an electric vehicle, so it took some trial and error, but eventually we'd figure out how to use the local charger. We don't have a charger at our house, so it was my first experience charging at home, and it was very convenient, to be honest. And the price was the same as they pay for home electricity, which was around 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Almost free in my book. This concludes this part of the video. In total, during the 4-day trip, we traveled 2010 kilometers from Zwolle to Madrid, stopping 11 times at Tesla Supercharger, spending 4 hours and 33 minutes charging. We spent €137 on Tesla Superchargers, €122 for 2 hotels along the road, €18 for few parking garages, and €120 on toll roads, making a total cost of this trip almost €400. Now to the promised bonus. After Madrid, we actually traveled across Portugal, reaching the Algarve region in the south. This was the first time we had issues with charging. Portugal has only 8 Tesla superchargers in the country, and they are not in great locations. No superchargers inside Lisbon or Porto, and just 4 of them in the south. Ionity locations weren't any better, so we had to rely on third-party chargers. The only app for foreigners here is Mio, and while it sounded convenient to activate all chargers from just one app, it turned out to be expensive and unpredictable. You never know how much you will pay for a charge, as the app only estimates costs and the final invoice filled with fees, abbreviations, and the confusing pricing structure. Some slow chargers cost us 74 cents per kilowatt hour, more expensive than fast chargers in most Europe. Some charging sessions were suddenly interrupted or couldn't be stopped via the app. In addition, you have to top up money in advance, and after a month I still haven't gotten the remainings back. In the end, we paid more than expected and spent a lot of time researching and troubleshooting. On the other hand, this trip made me value the Tesla supercharging network so much more. I was taking it for granted and never realized how easy it was until we had to rely on third-party chargers. But in general, I had a fantastic time on this trip. Driving a Tesla Model Y was extremely comfortable, autopilot is super convenient, and the Tesla charging network is super reliable where it exists. I hope this video was useful because it was super fun to make. And if you're planning to get a Tesla car, make sure to use my referral link below, it will help the channel. While making this video, I made a spreadsheet with all the charging stops we had, including charges at Portugal. I will link the spreadsheet below if you're curious. Let me know in the comments about your experience with electric vehicle road trips and if you want to see more videos about Tesla in the future. Keep charging, take care, and I'll see you soon.